Okay, so this is my video going over the documentation I have for a skate park tool I made. I won't go into the creation of the ramps in this video, but I'm gonna go over the idea of spawning in these actors, um, editing their values, destroying the actors, um, and changing values of the actors after they've been spawned. So, yeah, if you want to see more in-depth information, this PDF will be linked in the description. So, I'm just going to be going over the main ideas of this fairly quickly. So, the first main idea of this is the destruction of the ramps that I've spawned, or whatever you've spawned, once you try to kind of reset the map that you have made. So in this, the user is clicking the make layout button, and then it's reverse looping through the list of ramps that have been spawned and just destroying them. And then it's also clearing the list. I'm pretty sure you have to do a reverse iteration while destroying actors. It's been a while since I made this, but every single time I try to destroy stuff in games, it's had to be a reverse for loop. Next is the spawning of the ramps. So the spawning of the ramps is taking the information from the custom buttons that we made in the graph tutorial. It's above here if you didn't, or yeah, it's right here if you didn't watch that video. But it takes those values, it loops through the the buttons. It takes the values and it compares the value, and then it sees whether it's, in my case, 1, 2, or 3. Because if it's 0, it's not going to be instantiating an actor, or spawning an actor, sorry. So for me, if it's 1, we'll just follow this line. If it's 1, then that means that it's a ramp. In my ramp class, I have 3 different enums. Well, 3 different ramp enums, so it can either be a ramp, it can be a loop, or it can be a bank. And then there are different calculations for the spawning of the cube along the spline determined by these enums. So this is extremely important when the ramp is set. So then after this, every single one of these is going to go through these different settings. So it will set the ramp radius, lambda, width, bank depth, the amount of spline points, and then it even sets the forward access for that spline. So it's kind of setting the enum for a subclass even. But yeah, this can be anything. This is just stuff that's specific to my ramp class, but you can imagine that it could be anything, since you can set a mesh, you can set an enum, you can set a float. The other thing that is going on in this for loop is the position of the different ramps are being set. So when I created the grid, it's a square. So you can just take the square root of the amount of buttons in that grid, and then that will give you the width or height. It'll give you, yeah, the width or height. And then you can divide that to get the row. You can divide the position in the loop you are by the width to get the row. You can use modulus against the width to get the column. And then I'm just multiplying these values by the distance between the ramp, and I'm spawning the actor there. I'm also setting the start position of the ramp at that position too. So that's also specific to the ramp class. But yeah, let's see. Yeah. And then I created a bunch of text boxes to allow for the developer input so that they can easily change what they kind of want their ramp to look like. Okay, yeah, so I can go over kind of how it works. Yeah, the update ramp, I'm going to go over these real quick. The update ramp button, which is here, that's going to be doing the same exact thing that's happening over here, except it's not going to be updating the start position, and it's not going to be updating the enum. So in my case, you would have to completely destroy the layout if you wanted to really easily change the enum. You could still like click on the object and change the enum and that would switch it, but if you wanted to do it all from the editor widget, you would have to click the make layout button and reset everything. The set ramp button, this is, you have to kind of set the ramp object or actor because you're not able to, or I have not been able to figure out, it's probably totally possible to instantiate new actors just from having a a class, but when you're spawning an actor, you have to know the world in Unreal, and since it's an editor blueprint, you're not able to have the world. That's the main difference between UMG and the editor blueprints. I'm pretty sure since UMG blueprints are meant to be used in-game, it's like assuming the world that it's being spawned in, but for an editor blueprint, you kind of have to select the actor so that it knows that it exists in this world. So I'll show this in practice. So alright. Here, let me destroy all these ramps. So I'm going to click this, I'm going to set my ramp, I'm going to make layout, and then I'm going to like, I want like a bunch of ramps here, and then, let's see. Yeah, okay. I want a loop here, and then I want a bank here. And then I'm going to spawn the ramps. Wow, looks great. And then this is where it's kind of weird. I'm not sure why, But so everything is correct here. And I think this is a problem with my ramp class. But you have to take this and move it slightly. And then everything's updated. I think it's because everything is updated in my onConstruction script, and I'm updating the values of um, the values of this ramp after it's been spawned. So the onConstruction is called when an actor is spawned, but it's not being called after I reset all these values. So that is, I'm pretty sure, why I have to move them. So if I wanted to change a value, so I'm like, oh, this ramp, its radius is, or it's it's way too wide. I can set the width. I can increase the amount of spline points, which has nothing to do with width. I'll decrease it. I'm gonna update the ramp. Oh, I didn't. I need to set the ramp, and then I can update it. Yeah. And then, alright, is this the, I think this is the, I can change the rotation. And that doesn't need a constructor call, so that automatically changes. But yeah, and then if I make layout again, this should destroy everything. Nice. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. Yeah. Again, I'll have this linked in the description, so you can read through and look at the stills of the graph to gain a better understanding. But yeah.